we're asked to graph this function. So before we graph it by hand, without relying on a graphing calculator, we need to start with cosine of x, just this basic graph, and then we'll modify it according to those numbers we're given. Cosine of x, it starts at 1 on the y-axis, and then after 2 pi units on the x-axis, it should be back up to 1. And it makes a sine wave, which means it dips down to -1, then back up. That's one period of cosine of x. 2 periods of cosine of x would look like this, and it should level off a little bit more. Okay, so cosine of x starts at the peak of the amplitude. Sine of x does the same type of graph, except it starts right in the middle of the sine wave. Okay, that's what sine of x looks like. This is the graph of cosine of x. Okay, so 0.25, the only thing that number does is instead of starting at 1, we start at 0.25 on the y-axis, and then we dip down to -0.25, and then we come back after 2 pi units. This is the graph of 0.25 cosine of x. Start at 0.25 on the y-axis, dip down to -0.25, and then this is of x, so this is still a period of 2 pi. Now 2 is what we would call b in that formula I gave you in my introductory video on these graphs. B helps us calculate the period. And for cosine sine, the period is always 2 pi divided by whatever your B is. Okay, so mine, it's a nice even pi. If you get some weird fraction, you can convert it to a decimal and use that to help you. Like if you get 2/3 pi, or 2 pi over 3 in other words, you just want to mark that the function starts repeating itself at 2 pi over 3, if that was your period. My period is 1 pi. So I start at 0 on the x-axis because there's no horizontal shift. I'm going to end at 1 pi. And because my amplitude is 0.25, that's the highest I'm going to go. I'm going to start at 0.25, I'm going to dip down to -0.25 and be done. Okay. So there's one period of my graph. And if you want another period, then you're another pi units down on the x-axis. So you want to start and end once you get to x equals 2 pi. So that would be two periods of the function. And then obviously if you need a third, you go backwards too. Oh boy. You go down, then back up. There's going backwards. So that would be 3 periods. Period 1, period 2, period 3.